Good morning viewers, Sage here and welcome to the Executive Corner Expert Talks by 𝐊𝐿𝐴 TV. Today's guest is Mr. Nigel Benton, a publisher of Australasian Leisure Management. And have you ever wondered where you can find the best information about leisure and travel? Well, on today's show we're going to learn more about Australasian Travel Management and how their website and magazine publish news on leisure and recreational events for Australia, New Zealand and now even their growing reader base in Asia. So on today's show we have Mr. Nigel Benton, the publisher of Australasian Leisure Management. Welcome, Nigel.
Good morning and thanks for having me on and that lovely introduction.
Well, it's all true, making it easy for me. With your proven record in working across corporate and business-to-business media channels, we'd love to hear more from you. Would you please share your insights on the performance of the leisure industry in the pandemic-struck world that we're in at the moment?
Well, it's certainly been an interesting 16 months for all sectors that we tend to cover and report on. Hugely challenging. I think the watchword for pretty much everybody in business is thank God for JobKeeper, even though that is now a thing of the past since several months. But that certainly kept much of the industry afloat through last year's and the major lockdowns and turmoil that many sectors faced. So yeah, a very challenging 16 months for all, most if not all of the sectors we cover. We cover sport, which locked down both at a community and at elite level. Fitness and gyms is a big sector we cover as well, which was locked down nationwide and certainly in some states, as we're experiencing in New South Wales at the moment, and also in Victoria repeatedly has had ongoing lockdowns. I think in Victoria there are up to 5 lockdowns, which with gyms and fitness clubs and the like being the first to close and the last to reopen. And then other sectors as well. Tourism, inbound tourism, non-existent. And that applies for New Zealand as well. Domestic tourism has gone in peaks and troughs, closed down for a large extent of the last 16 months, but occasional signs of positivity and recovery, certainly for in-state tourism. And then ongoing challenges for the arts, entertainment, the concert and touring sector as well. So it's been an extraordinarily challenging year. Businesses, I think, have overall performed very, very well. They've adapted, they've had to take sort of drastic measures in terms of their staffing and things such as that. But venues remain open and overall there have been very few business failures, which is quite remarkable. How businesses will continue to perform, well, it really depends on the extent and length of lockdowns that we're facing at the moment. And ultimately how quickly we have a vaccinated population who can return to something approaching what was normal before, but certainly return to consuming and spending their disposable dollars, albeit that they may well spend them in different ways in the future.
Exactly. Thank you so much. There was so much wealth of information in just that first answer. I mean, thank goodness we just received 1 million doses of Pfizer last night, and we should be seeing that happening every week from now on, apparently, we're being promised. And somehow Qantas has managed to make some sort of a profit this year from the domestic travel and their cargo shipments. But it's amazing. I mean, the airport traffic has decreased significantly all across the world. And you've just shed some light on that whole situation there, that very succinct answer. Let's move on now. How can businesses collaborate with you in terms of advertising and publishing? They usually come hand in hand. How can people get involved with your publication?
Well, we're essentially a business-to-business magazine, a trade magazine, if you like, that covers the activity and management of what people do in their out-of-home free time. There's a couple of caveats there that we don't cover what people do when they're away from home in terms of shopping, eating or driving. But we cover when people go to the gym, go to a theme park, go on holiday, those types of sectors. And essentially we define it as how people, the business of people having fun. And on top of that, not just fun, but in terms of, sort of things that people set themselves, sporting attainments and things such as that, what people achieve to improve their quality of life and things such as that. So we, from an editorial point of view, we look to report on all that is best about the industry, what the industry does well in terms of case studies and developments and appointments and events and so on. But at the same time, we do scrutinise. We see value in scrutiny. Scrutiny is very important in terms of business learnings. we essentially learn from our mistakes in all walks of life. So we cover things when they don't work so well, and hopefully people can learn from them in the future. And I think most people in the industry would agree that while we do that, we don't put the boot in, we don't sensationalise. We're not like some of the city newspapers and tabloids who look for sensationalism in what they report. We try to be objective when we do scrutinise the industry. So based upon the approach of independent editorial that readers value and see as credible, we also leverage off that advertising opportunities for businesses and firms supplying products and services to the industry, so they can leverage off that. So, I mean, an old school model that you might refer to in newspapers and the like, but it equally applies for online as well, that you're drawn to adverts that leverage off editorial you're reading about. If, for example, it's about a cleaning or hygiene product, or examples that you're looking at in how venues and facilities and the like keep themselves hygienic and clean for customers and clients and members, we're able to advertise products and services that relate to that type of editorial. And and we cover insurance services, products and services, the industry in terms of access control or seating or swimming pool products, gym equipment, and so on and so forth, so that people who have products and services to sell have what is a unique way to reach the audience, because essentially we have no competing publications in Australia, New Zealand, and believe it or not, in Asia as well.
Fantastic. And I think it's just so brilliant that there is some sort of synchronicity. If you put the right idea out there, it does attract to you the right people, and the right clients do tend to find you eventually. And that's a brilliant segue that you were talking about sensationalism, and so many newspapers use, the fear and guilt of parents and the people out there as tactics to draw readers to their publications. But how do you use communication and publishing strategies as an independent publication to expand your readership?
We essentially rely on good quality editorial that informs people in the industry. It helps them learn about their industry they're in, learn more about it, and do their job more easily. We want to equip our readers, and we do have quite a significant readership. We have over 11,000 readers of the print magazine, which is bi-monthly, and we have over 125,000 unique visitors to the website, the Australasian website, each month. So it's quality of information, and I think if we were putting up poor quality information or sensational information, people would very quickly move away. It comes down to the quality of what you're delivering each day. And even though we're a very small organisation, we do have the inside track on a lot of industry developments. We often lead some of the major media organisations in terms of the sort of things that we're covering, even in the last few days. I can give you some examples maybe in another question, but when we provide information that people can, we've curated and presented to them in an easy way, and a unique way, because there's no one source that you can get similar information, so that people can access and ultimately be better informed when they go into work, or when they're looking to develop their careers or make investment decisions about the industry.
Fantastic. And what are the exclusive benefits that businesses get when they get listed with your suppliers directory, please?
Yeah, that's true. That's one part of what we offer. We offer a mix of both in print and online. I should probably step back and explain how we differentiate that as well. In the print magazine, which we've published for over 20 years, we have increasingly made that more features based. Online, we have our news service, because everybody gets their news online, and the immediacy of that. And then linked to that online, we have an industry suppliers directory, and that's essentially like a Yellow Pages used to be, in providing a one-stop shop for anyone looking for products and services in the industry, whatever that might be. Whether it's mowing equipment and turf care, whether it's seating for major stadia or arenas or cinemas, whether it's products for aquatic centres or whatever it may be. It is a simple way to list and provide almost an alternative website that then leverages into any editorial that we ran about that business and or about that sector. So people can perhaps read about a product, and the supplier will say, this is what our product is, and then there'll be examples of it which they can read about in an impartial editorial as well, that will cover how a particular product might have been used.
Yes, and I guess this whole isolation factor that we're having to go through kind of resonates a little bit with going off-grid and camper vanning and things like that. So who knows where it's going to go from here? In your educated opinion on the subject and revival of the leisure industry from the aftermath of the pandemic, which way do you see it heading?
Gosh, there's the million-dollar question. In many different ways, if that's not a sort of a sidestepping the question. I know the pivot has been a big word of the last year and a half, but businesses have pivoted. For example, fitness clubs closed in Greater Sydney and Greater Melbourne at the moment, and closed through much of Australia in the last 16 months or so. They've pivoted, and their suppliers as well have looked at the in-home market, that people will want to continue exercising. So they'll consume their products in a different way, in the way that you would have done, a Les Mills class in a gym a couple of years ago. Les Mills have put an increasing amount of product online for home use. The same applies to big equipment manufacturers such as Technogen as well, who very much make or enable consumers, former fitness club members, to continue to consume what they did previously, but they were doing it in an in-home environment. Linked to that, you see the performance of, say, a new arrival in the market called Peloton from the USA, which links online contact with in-home fitness equipment, and they have done extraordinarily well and have been launching in Australia in sites over the last few months. So that's a pivot. One sector that has done extraordinarily well, you mentioned, camper vans, in-state holidays. I mean, certainly since post-lockdown, in-state holidays have been very popular, so much so that some country towns, accommodation and flights or transport to them have been at an absolute premium price because of the huge demand for people wanting to travel in state. And that, as you said, applies to camper vans and the like. And then linked to that, while most facilities are closed, parks and the like are open. So people will be making increasing use of public parks and public open space as well. Golf has boomed in popularity because it is a sport where people can social distances. The whole bicycle market has thrived as well, and people are making increasing use of parks. So those areas have done very well, but so many other areas have been stop-start. We've seen major stadia for sporting events with different numbers and different percentages of attendees allowed to attend, and then when issues and infections rise, then being closed down. So that's very much stop and start. And then the areas that face some real challenges is live entertainment, festivals, major tours and the like. And certainly the major concert promoters and major concert venues have faced challenges. While it's been great to see Australian acts tour the country, there's very few domestic acts, and essentially it does come down to overseas acts who will fill the major venues, the Qudos Bank arenas, the RAC Arena in Perth, and like, they need major acts, international acts to tour. And as it stands at the moment, there's not the confidence among promoters and indeed the acts themselves to want to tour. So it's a mixed picture as how we will emerge. I think people will react as borders reopen and as vaccination allows increased movement and return to these things. We've seen big attendances at events when they've been held in Australia and indeed overseas. Once the UK's opened up and Europe, we've seen big attendances events recently, just in the last few weeks. So people will go back, but a lot of operators will have faced financial challenges. Added to that as well, there's an aside that before JobKeeper was closed, there were huge predictions that JobKeeper would lead to businesses closing and lead to job losses. Actually, for most sectors, the reverse of that happened. As businesses went back and reopened, what they experienced was a shortage of staff. Staff who had previously been casual or part-time had during the lockdown adapted and moved on to other things. So in a lot of sectors, operators were finding real difficulties in finding enough staff to keep facilities and activities and attractions open. And that was kind of unexpected. And until we've got that free movement of peoples, and particularly international visitors who those on working visas, a lot of sectors will face some big challenges there in making sure that they can remain open because they have enough staff to fill the spaces that they need to operate.
Absolutely spot on there, Nigel. Yes, you're not wrong at all, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Tokyo Olympic Games continues on in just a couple of weeks, since you've been talking about sport and events. Thank you so much for making time for us and sharing your valuable insights. Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up there. And viewers, if you've just joined us, we've just had a very interesting discussion with Mr. Nigel Benton, a publisher of Australian leisure, or Australasian, should I say, leisure management. Thank you very much for sharing your insights on the show today, Nigel. Really appreciate it.